Okay, right. Well, this will be the first presentation of this sort that I have ever given. So bear with me, bear with the technology, and we'll see how we go. Okay, everybody should be able to see my screen now. So I'm sharing with you. It is our presentation screen. I'm going to duck into the internet at some point. So again, bear with me because I've never done it before, so we'll just see how it goes. So for those of you who don't know me or Pebblebeach, my name is Amy. I'm the account director for Pebblebeach, and I work on quite a few of the DM campaigns, but also quite a few of our social campaigns. So we do those now more frequently alongside the DM campaigns that we do, so the direct mail campaigns. We're based down in Brighton, so I am coming to you from Patcham and in my living room, which is very weird and exciting, I guess, at the same time. So what we're going to do today is basically walk you through how we would create a social appeal. And then I'm going to show some examples of sort of good virtual fundraising practice that I've seen in recent time, and stuff that me and the team has been getting involved with online, because I think it's worth just sort of exploring some of the ideas and things that have happened since everything has gone a bit crazy. Right, so let me see if this works. No, great, good start. There we go. All right, so as I said, some of the ambitions for today, to give you some sort of a method for planning your digital campaign. So some of the stuff that I'm going to talk about is stuff you already know, all right? Stuff that you already do and you do it fantastically, and that's great. The goal here is really just to share what we do, and then if there's something that you don't do that you think you might want to try out, you've got that there to be able to take forward into the future. Ideas about how to prioritize your time. So I know that everybody is super busy, and fundraising and marketing are really pressed at this moment to be coming up with new and fantastic things. So totally understandable if that's not something that you have loads of time to do. So let's look at the ways that you can spend your time most wisely online, because let's face it, it's a black hole of time in many cases. We are towards the end going to look at current trends, the platforms that are doing well, and then just look briefly at virtual fundraising. To be honest, we could do a series of webinars on virtual fundraising at this point. There's not a lot in the way of results, except for the big headline figures, but you know, it's something that we could potentially be doing in the future. All right, so this is how we plan a campaign. All right. We start with looking at measuring success, so we'll go through that. We look at audience, so who are we actually talking to? We look at proposition. What are you asking for money for or support for, or what are you trying to gather information for? And then we also look into planning and timing, so that's a really crucial bit. And then finally, and this is how we do, if you've ever worked with us on a direct mail campaign, this is how we do this as well. We do creative last. And that's because we've kind of set up all the building blocks to make the campaign amazing, and then we make it look good at the end. So I guess it's a bit like putting on your dress on going on to a night out. Not that I ever do that, but it is something as an analogy that may or may not appeal to you. Okay, so let's talk about success first. And the reason that I put this first is because we get a lot of briefs about doing social that I think are quite different. And I think this is interesting in the charitable sector at the moment. So for some people, success looks like money. Certainly for the fundraisers amongst us, this is probably quite important. When I first did this presentation, I think it's worth mentioning, it was the 13th of March, and it was in the Cotswolds. For those of you who went to the NAF Now Higgin conference, the world looked very different to what it looks like now. And I remember very distinctly saying, you're not going to make loads of money doing a social campaign. It just isn't the thing, okay? I'm quite happy to eat my words now, because everything has changed. Everything has changed about how we actually measure success. Everything has changed in terms of goalposts, so what's actually possible, online, and that's fantastic. That just means that money might actually be something that we can start investing our time and our own charities' money in actually building that foundation of social. For some charities, and in some cases, this is the marketing department's remit. It's more about engagement, showing that you're engaging with supporters, building a new supporter base online, and that comes through looking at impressions. It comes through looking at shares, comments, likes, all the things that you could do to a post to say that you enjoy it. For others, and again, this is sort of linked to the first two, it's clicks to your website. And then finally, at the bottom of it, what we're really looking for is new supporters and however they're willing to support us. All right, so in terms of measurement, and the reason that I say that we should do this first is because it's really important that we've got all the stuff we need to be able to report back to the people who are saying, yeah, go ahead with that campaign. So if you've got this stuff in place, it just means you've got a ready-made reporting system to be able to say, here's how this worked. It's also quite important when it comes to the timing and planning part of a campaign. So how do we measure this success? If it were us, so if it were Pebblebeach doing this, we'd probably look at analytics, so the built-in analytics for MailChimp for emails. We look at Twitter analytics. We look at Instagram analytics. All of those platforms have got built-in things, but so too does Hootsuite, which is, for those of you not familiar with it, the way that lots of busy charities will post all of their posts across different platforms. And then there's qualitative reporting. I haven't seen as much of this lately, but it's definitely still out there. And that's looking at individual posts and saying, this one performed well because of A, B, and C, we think. And here's the stats for it. So actually looking at a picture of that post and deep diving into why we think that performed well. All right. I thought it was probably worth adding this in after the last time I did this presentation, because I think we have ideas about how these platforms work and who they appeal to, but I think we don't necessarily know what the breakdown is. So I did a little bit of investigation into Facebook. I mean, take these statistics with a pinch of salt. Facebook, 75% female. I think you probably would notice that if you're looking at the people who like your pages and follow you, and who probably comment on your posts as well. The majority of those people are between the ages of 18 and 49. So that's quite a big swathe, but they've got a really fast growing over 65s demographic. And I would imagine that is probably even more poignant now, because if you think about it, Facebook's got a built-in chat platform and things like that. You've got people across the world, like my family, for example. We use Zoom, but if my dad wants to get a hold of me, he might call me on Messenger. Now he's not in that growing 65 category, but he's fairly technologically inept. So for him to be able to do that and do it easily is a bonus. And they've done that on purpose to make it easy for people who are older to be able to use these things, and us as well. This is the most interesting statistic about Facebook, is that 51% of people say they use it several times a day. Okay. So when you're talking about time spent on a platform, Facebook seems to be the one that people spend the most time on. Twitter, this is what I found really interesting. Apparently 61% male. The majority of those people are between the ages of 13 and 29. Okay, so quite a young demographic. 25% of those people say they use it several times a day. Okay, that's quite a low thing. And actually the majority of people said they'll use it maybe a few times a week. So it's quite low, but there is an average of around 3 minutes use time, which is quite long. So if you're going to go onto Twitter, you probably spend about 3 minutes there, which is a long time in the world of social. Instagram, 43% female. This is said to be a favorite of teens, behind Snapchat. I don't know if any of you know what Snapchat is. That one totally missed me. I'm too old for that. Naomi can probably tell us a little bit more about that. I have no idea. I have no idea what it is. And then 42% of those people say they use it several times a day. So if you're looking at this as a spread, and we were thinking, okay, so how are we going to plan our time? It looks to me like Facebook might be the first place that you go. Now, everybody's audiences are different and everybody's expertises are different. And so it's perfectly fine if you want to spend more time on Twitter, but I will talk a little bit more about that later. I haven't quite worked out the animations to this. All right, so what we're actually looking for is who are your supporters, who loves you enough to follow you? Where are they? So what platform do they tend to spend their time on? And where are they in the world? And I don't know if this is news to you guys, but it turns out that everyone's spending a lot of time online right now. That's probably going to go down a little bit as the lockdown or the restrictions ease. But you know, it seems to be that people are spending quite a lot of their time on their computers or their phones in a way that they weren't before, even though they may not be commuting anymore. So let's look at when they're actually online to do those things. And then the easiest thing to do is to look at how they actually respond to you so far. So what do they do? Do they comment? You know, do you have top fans on Facebook? Let's have a look and see where we want to spend and target our time. So for most campaigns, these are the things that we'll be looking at. We will absolutely start with a website, so we will do the copy for that. We will try to make sure that everything important is above the fold. So if you don't know what above the fold is, it's, I think, an old newspaper term, and it basically means you put the important stuff above the fold in the newspaper. And then, you know, if you have time, you go down to the bottom bit of the newspaper to read that stuff. The same principle works on the website, and it's quite a common thing. So if you've not got your donate button or the important stuff, which is still the donate button, on the top part of the website, then it might be worth looking at that when you're building that part of your campaign. Email's absolutely essential right now. I know that permissions are hard to come by, but it's still worth spending some time on that. And then maybe we look at the social platforms in order of how important they are. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook and Insta Live we'll talk briefly about later on when we talk about some of the virtual fundraising stuff. All right, proposition. This is the important stuff. What do you need money for? Okay, and this is one of the things I had a rant about. If you joined us 2 weeks ago for Ash's webinar, which was about emergency appeals, I support a number of charities. I have heard from 2 of them during this time of crisis. So one of the important things that I think is worth mentioning, and this is if you are considering doing an appeal or if you're considering a follow-up to an appeal, is tell people what's happening now with your charity. I say this as a donor and not as a fundraiser. It is so frustrating. Oh, don't get me started again. I'm going to start myself off. It is so frustrating when you know that there are charities that you support that aren't contacting you, but you know that they are on the front line of this. So if there is capacity, if you've got time, if you've got space, please do tell people what's happening right now. And whether that's through mail, which we would highly recommend, or social, or both, please do spend some time to do that. I know that all of you guys have done that, so I'm not too worried, but you know, it's worth saying. So what do you need money for? So a lot of times if you work for a hospice and you're part of this webinar right now, it will be some sort of change to your service. Maybe you've got more beds that are open. That's a big deal. Maybe you've opened bereavement support to the rest of the community. That's a big deal too. So let's tell people about it. All right, new nurses and service providers, yeah, potentially. It may be that you need new staff people, maybe staff people, that's the thing. You need new staff to do the stuff that you do well. It's worth talking about that. I know that things will change rapidly over the next few months, but if that's something you need, then yeah, let's talk about it. And in a lot of cases, with hospices especially, we find that this is the proposition. So it's just about making sure that we can package that up in a way that makes sense to the people who are reading it and where they're reading it. So that's what I've said. What I'm going to do later on when we talk about specific appeals, and I am going to try to go through this fairly quickly, is boiling down that proposition into a single phrase. Understanding again how and when people look at that stuff. So I haven't talked about mobile yet. I'm only talking about laptops and desktops at the moment. But it's really important that you package that thing, that proposition, above the fold, but in a way that makes sense to people the way they're reading it. So if it's on their phone, we need to be aware of that. It's not always easy to do, but it's important that we keep it in mind. Imagery and scaling, I think everybody collectively, charities, organizations have gotten a lot better at this, and that's not an easy feat, because for a lot of the platforms, they keep changing how they want their images and videos. So I'm not too worried about that. The last thing I think is super important, though. It's time really for us to be aware of what people are talking about on social media, and to engage in those conversations. So I'm fully on board with people taking the conversation away, maybe for a good news moment or something like that from the coronavirus. But we always have to be conscious that it is forefront in a lot of people's minds right now. We can't sort of wish it away. We have to be aware that that is something that people are thinking about, and just make sure that we know. All right, planning and timing. All right, I called this the not so fun part. Chelsea, who does a lot of our social planning, will agree with this. She knows exactly what I'm talking about here. We create a posting plan, part one, and that part one is usually 1 week. We used to do longer than a week, but as you may have noticed, things have changed quite rapidly in the past few weeks, and you never know what's coming next. So it's always good to just kind of hold back and wait so that you can engage with those conversations that are happening that week. So we create a very small plan, and then we create plans week by week when we're ready to go into them. Make sure you've got your website, your landing page, and your emails ready. So the difference between these two things, I'm just using these two terms. You can call them whatever you want. So when I say website, I mean the page that you're going to put the appeal on, or the campaign on. And then the landing page could be slightly different. It could be the thing that makes it really easy for people to donate. So there are quite a few good examples on Sprout Social. Lightful, which is a social group, have a few examples. What I didn't want to do is just show you what UNICEF is doing, because to be honest, they've got plenty of money to be able to be experimental, and the web developers to have the time and energy to put into this stuff. I don't expect everybody to be able to follow that, but they are quite good examples if you want to have a look at good landing pages. Make sure you got your emails ready to go, make them nice, make them look cool, and then finalize all the stuff that you're going to put into the post, so like the imagery. And then when it starts, when people are liking and commenting and sharing, it's time to begin monitoring results, having a look at what people are doing, making sure that you're responsive to those things, and then planning for us, for example, would be the next week, based on what's happened before and based on what we know people responded to that first week. There's always time to create new stuff. I'm going to show you an example. If you were in the webinar last week, we talked a lot about Isabel Hospice and their emergency appeal. They have really, I think, done a great job on their social. They have made some really engaging videos with the nurse who was the front of the campaign. And I'm going to show you a little bit of that if I can figure it out on here. All right, then we talk about creative. This is the last thing that we do. It's important. But I think if you've got all the rest of the stuff right, this sort of just falls into place. So imagery, this might be a big duh to everybody, but use the stuff that's special and nice and interesting to look at. Videos, as you probably know, are really important. They tend to, within the Facebook algorithm, score quite highly, and so do photos. It's really important also if we think about communities that are not necessarily watching with sound or can't hear. Most people will be watching videos without the sound on, so subtitles are really, really crucial if you're able to make that change to your videos. Make sure everything fits. Make sure it's the right format for the platform. As I said, I think everybody's really gotten on board with this, but it can be tricky when they change all the time. All right. I will spend a brief amount of time on this. Don't assume anyone knows anything about what you've posted before or what you do, okay? Or that they've read your appeal or other posts. Every single post is a chance to tell that story again, possibly in a different way. I think we as fundraisers, and at Pebblebeach, we are no exception to this. We think that everybody is taking and reading and absorbing our content in the way that we want them to. But they really aren't. They may glance at it, they may see the picture, they may see something, but their attention that day might be divided, or they have to do something else. We have to spend every single time we're creating a post and making it as impactful as possible, and assuming they haven't read any of the other ones, which is a bit sad, but that's the reality of it. Or our beautiful appeals, which we create. Maybe they didn't read it. I don't know. Beware character counts and the media. Again, me harping on about scaling and stuff. This is one that Chelsea told me, because she's younger than me and she knows a lot about social that I'm still catching up on. Capitalizing hashtags, because this differentiates the words within a phrase. So if you aren't doing that, then I think the platforms can't recognize what the phrase is that you're trying to get to. So if you've got a multi-word phrase, make sure you capitalize the hashtags. And sometimes less is more. Unlike my presentation style. It's the free one. All right, let's talk briefly about Isabel. So they did a beautiful campaign with us, which they made even more beautiful on social. So here is the methodology that we just went through in a nutshell. All right, so for these guys, and this is some of the stuff they did, they may have done more than this. They looked at MailChimp open rates and clicks, so people clicking through to the website from the emails that they sent out. They sent out, I think, roughly about 3,500 emails, and they sent 2 of them. General engagement, they're looking at online donations, so stuff that they can link between their emails and their posts to their website. So first of all, we did a direct mail pack that went out in the post. Chelsea can probably put in the chat how many people that went to, because I can't remember, maybe 7,000. They did those 2 emails that I talked about to 3,500 people each. And then they've got, and it's still going on, a plethora of Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram imagery. All right, what is their proposition? Okay, so they've got a few things. It's not quite as easy to boil down into the nutshell that I was talking about before. They need some new beds. So they're running new beds for patients specifically with COVID-19. They have got a demand to meet for home care. So there's more people who are being looked after in their home. And they've got a helpline for people for when they're not able to go out into the community and reach those homes. The other thing they've done, which a lot of hospices have done, is they have opened their bereavement team up to the entire community that they serve, because obviously lots of people are facing loss right now. And you know, the way that they are able to cope with that has completely changed. They're just not in a normal situation to be able to grieve and think about those things properly. So that's a really valuable thing that we put into the appeal. Planning and timing, this went out on the 22nd of April, along with the first posts. The emails landed roughly around the same time. I think the second email went out in May, and they've got an ongoing social plan. So I think at this point, what I'm gonna do, if I can work it, is actually try to show you, their emails, and let you click and let the click through happen. So I think it's interesting doing a social presentation on this platform, because everything's very static. But really, what I want to be able to show you is the fun, interesting, moving stuff that people have been able to do. So this is one of their emails in HTML format. We've got a massive badge here for their Fighting Fund, which is great. So I think this email is fantastic. This is Kelly. She's the subject of a lot of the videos that they've put up. If we had time, I would play this video, but please do go have a look on their Facebook, because they've got this up. The only thing I'd say about the email is quite long, but it's beautiful. It looks nice. And then right above the fold, as I was talking about, is this big button. If you click that button, you go to the web page. Now, again, the only gripe I've got about this is that you've got to go down here to get to the donate button. Luckily, there's the one up at the top here, but it's not really linked to the campaign. So if you've read that email and you're excited and you want to go and give a donation, you're then back to Kelly again, which is fine. I'm happy to watch Kelly again. But what I really want to do perhaps is donate. So if we click through to that, again, they've done a great job with this. They're making it really simple and easy to do the thing that we want to do, which is it gives some money. I want to part with some of my hard-earned money and donate. This is really nice too. They've adapted all of their price points to have the nurses in PPE, really tapping into the conversation that's happening now. And making it relevant. I have been on a few websites where, you know, the price points and such are the same as they were 3 months ago, and that's fine. But let's recognize that people who are going to be coming to your website, because there's going to be more of them if you're putting stuff out, are going to be expecting some sort of response and conversation with what's happening at this point in time, which of course is coronavirus. So I think this is really, really well done. And it makes it easy for us to understand what's happening at the hospice and why this money is so important to them. All right, so I'm going to stick back onto my presentation if I can manage it. And I don't know if I can do it. Not really. All right, where were we? Okay, I'll do it from there. Okay, so we got to that point. Can you guys see this? Yes, I think you can. Okay, good. All right, so we've gone through the methodology there. Here are some of the social posts. These are some of the Twitter things. Again, they're using that nice big logo. They've got Kelly talking. They've got an easy trackable link to be able to go to the donate page we just saw. So I think it's pretty great. I think they've done a fantastic job. All right, this is one we did earlier. So Birmingham, Birmingham St. Mary's. I think Katie might be here. Hello, Katie, if you are. We've taken some leaps on this because we often create the social plan, but what we don't always get to see is the analytics behind it. So if we were going to suggest some stuff, we would be looking at Facebook and Twitter analytics, but also those really important links that go back and forth between the website and social, so you can see if people are clicking on them. All right, so the audience here for the Comfort and Care Appeal was a direct mail pack, which we sent out in March. Emails, so there was one for the audience that did not get the direct mail pack, and then one for the audience that did. Obviously, those two messages are slightly different because we know that some people may have got the pack in the post. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Proposition, well, this one's a bit easier to boil down. New beds, mattresses, equipment, syringe drivers, they need them. Planning and timing. All right, I think this, I might be wrong on this, but I think this landed probably about the same time I did this presentation last time, when we entered a whole new world of life. The Friday, the 13th, quite aptly, of March, along with the first post and the first emails. We continued their social until mid-April, so we created a plan for that. But what also happened in mid-April, which I think is important to mention, is the 2.6 challenge. So we made some nice posts and everything, and we thought they would keep going up. But the team at Birmingham, and quite rightly, because this is the decisions that they need to make, decided to jump on the 2.6 bandwagon. So that actually kind of took over a lot of those posts. That's absolutely fine. Katie has said, and I hope Katie doesn't mind me saying, that they made $8,000 from that. They had, I think, 25 donors doing that. So it seems a worthwhile thing, but this is why I said before, we make sure we create the plan with the idea of being adaptive in mind, because to be honest, if anybody could have said that this was going to happen, you know, they would be probably a millionaire right now. Actually, they probably own Zoom. Very smart people. But the thing is that we just don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. The conversation could change, and being adaptive and able to jump on something new, if you've got the time and energy to do it, is a great thing to have. So this is a little bit what our social thing, our social planning looks like. We use good old Excel. We put the imagery that we're going to use within that spreadsheet. We put the hashtags and such. We plot it out per platform. And again, we're always about making sure we can make changes to that if we need to before we hand it over. And you might do something similar to this, but it's really important that we have that first week bedded in, just to get the tone of voice right, to make sure we've got the imagery right. So if we take it through from the beginning, this is the direct mail pack. It's lovely Rachel, our spokes nurse. Here are some of the Instagram badges and Twitter badges that we used, and banners. And so, yeah, that is where we kind of start and where we finish with those kinds of appeals. All right. I just wanted to put this graphically so it made sense in terms of how we look at these things. So ultimately, we're looking at the emails or the direct mail, depending on what you do. Maybe you do both, as really branching out into those other things. So giving you a way to go to the thing that you're most comfortable with, learn more, support more, and give more. So you may get the email and you may go, oh, I didn't know they had a Facebook page. I'll click on that because I'm always on Facebook. Or you might think, that's really touched me. You know what? I'm going to go to the webpage. I'm going to give now. So that's a landing page. For a lot of these emergency appeals, our direct mail pack has been very clear about actually saying, please call or please go to the website to donate, because processing donations, paper donations at this point, it's tricky. It's tricky for everybody. Everybody's busy. They have loads of stuff to do, but also handling paper and the post being delayed has meant that that's just not something that everybody can do right now. So let's make it as easy as possible for both the donors, but also for you guys to actually do these things. But then also what we want to do is whenever we're posting on Facebook, so in the plan, we're posting on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, is we want to point that back to the donate page. So ultimately, these should be about, we've given you the story in the way that you think you want to read the story. If you're convinced, you click through, go to the landing page and give some money, okay? So all of these things need to be aware of each other, and they also need to be pointing to each other. We always want another opportunity for somebody to engage in a way that's comfortable to them, but also for getting up engagement. So like the likes and comments and posts, it could be that somebody really loves Twitter, so they're on Twitter all the time. We need to be able to find that person there and welcome them into our community if we can. All right, so this is the last bit about campaigns, and I'm going to go briefly into virtual fundraising, and then we go to questions. Just to say, if you do have a question, please chuck it into the chat screen, and Chelsea is going to collate those and ask me. We are not like full-blown experts, but we know quite a lot collectively between us, so Naomi and Chelsea might be answering those too. All right, so social has proved very successful for fundraising in the past few months in a way that I think we haven't seen before, which is fantastic. So what we need to do is we need to tell the stories. We need to enable people to understand what's happening right now. This is so important, and it's one thing that I've been harping on about pretty continuously for the past few months. If you don't tell me what's happening, I'm not going to think anything's wrong or that you need my help. And it's pretty much as simple as that. Help them give a gift in the way that's easiest to them. So I will talk about Facebook in virtual fundraising very, very soon. And that's because for me, I'm set up automatically with Facebook and Just Giving to donate. So it is probably a 2-click process for me to give money to them. Slightly dangerous for me, but also very quick and easy and good for you. The last thing I'll say, and this leads on to my next slide, is to say thank you hugely and often, in the splashiest way that you possibly can. All right, let's start with virtual fundraising very, very quickly. We have done a lot of stuff recently. We have done a lot of Kahoots. We have done a lot of bingo. We've done a lot of YouTube quizzes collectively between us. I'd like to say that we're sort of experts in this, but we, probably just means we're spending too much time online. There you go. One of the things that I've talked about in the blog that we put up on our website about super fundraisers is the fact that obviously events as they used to look are not really going to happen anymore, at least possibly not this year. So we need to think about other stuff. So what I want you to do, if it's possible, if you've got the time and capacity, is look for those super fundraisers. Who was the person who did the color run 6 years in a row and raised the most money for you? If they can't do the color run now, could they do something else? Can we contact them online or however we can contact them and see if they'd be interested in doing something else for us? Maybe they want to do a quiz. Maybe they want to do a virtual run and host it. Maybe they can get a group of their friends together to do something, not in contact with each other, obviously, but something together that they'd like to do. Okay. One of the other things about this that I think is worth mentioning is that TikTok, when I did this presentation 2 months ago, somebody at the end came up to me and asked about TikTok campaigns. And I was like, I'm too old to know what that would entail. but also there was no way to monetize anything on TikTok. Well, that's changed. That's changed recently. You can now work on the donate button on TikTok. You can do it on Instagram. You can do it on Facebook. I think probably the only platform it's not super easy on is Twitter. Facebook and Instagram Live, as I said before, it's a way to have some sort of immediacy with your audience to actually speak to them, sort of in a way that we're doing this with Zoom, but in, I think, a much more intimate way. This is really important if you've got something that you think that you want to communicate to people, but also that you think might be worth their time to have a look at. But I also think it's really nice. I mean, I think I've seen some where nurses have been doing a Facebook Live session and talking about COVID-19, what's happening at the hospice. If that's something that you can do and you think it would add value to people, then go for it. This is something I've been talking to Ash about, actually, trends. Trends are something that are great. It shows the innovation and creativity of our community. Fantastic. The problem with them is they move on very quickly. So I think a few weeks ago, I was challenged on Instagram to do a very silly thing, which was basically you do a handstand and you try to put your t-shirt on upside down. I don't know who comes up with this stuff. I did practice it, but about a week later I gave up, which was fine because by that point it had completely gone anyway. And to do it would have been super passé. This is how fast and fickle the world of social is. So if you haven't jumped on it and maximized your time on it and spent the energy to make it fantastic when it happens, then maybe it's not worth doing. Maybe it's worth just waiting and trying to catch the next train, as it were, as it passes. You know, we're not set up to do lots of things like that. Not everybody can do a handstand. It's weird. So, you know, do the stuff that makes sense for your charity. Don't just try to grab onto something because it's there and people are doing it. You know, handstands, weird. All right, I wanted to give a personal example because this is something that I'm probably going to write a blog post about fairly soon. I was thinking about it all last night. So my birthday was on the 27th of April. I decided to do a Facebook fundraiser. I'm not going to say what charity it was, but it's a national charity that has a regional branch in this area. Okay, so I could see from their website, not because they told me, but from their website, what they were actually doing with that money. And I thought, that's what I want to do. Everybody who lives in my area can give to that and feel like they're doing something in Brighton and Hove that's going to make a difference. Okay. So I set that up. One of the things I was super hot on throughout my birthday, even though I was also working, I promise, Ash, was making sure that I thanked people. Because if you know about the Facebook algorithm, you know that it prioritizes stuff from your friends. It prioritizes stuff that they think is going to give you a meaningful connection with something. So every time someone donated, I put an emoji up, it thanked them in a different way, and it kept my Facebook fundraiser at the top of everybody's news feed. So I was getting donations until the middle of May. What I'm not so pleased about, and I'm not calling out any charity at this point because I know that everybody's busy, is that they did not contact me throughout this at all. So about a week ago, I messaged them because I thought that would be good. And I said, I just want to make sure you guys got my £570 from my 41 friends that came together to give you that. I got a message back, first the automated message, and then the second one was a message that said, so sorry, you know, we're really busy right now trying to make sure everybody has what they need during this crisis. I'll have a look with finance. I don't even know where to go with that because the donor in me is sad because I can't tell everybody how grateful that charity is for that donation. And the fundraiser in me is furious about it. And so, you know, I completely understand that everybody's busy, but one of the things I did note is that this charity is posting on Facebook all the time. So when I said that you need to have the time and energy to devote to these platforms to make sure that you're maximizing it, is really to make sure that nobody like this slips through the net. So nobody who's giving you a big donation and making a big deal out of it. I know 570 quid isn't that much. but it's a lot of money to me and my friends. And, you know, we want to feel like we're actually making a difference there. So here's what should have happened. So Chelsea's father-in-law did a Facebook fundraiser for Mental Health Foundation, and they gave him a gift. I don't need a gift, but it would have been nice. This is lovely, and it's really nice. And Chelsea actually said that they contacted him twice because he didn't respond the first time. That seems to be the way around that it should be. I also just wanted to point this out because I didn't realize this at first, and this is the way with so many social things, that you can actually do your own fundraiser for yourselves. So you can harness those super fundraisers to do something like the Facebook birthday things or the challenges on Instagram, or you can also start your own campaign that people can add to, like All We Can has done for coronavirus. This is what it was up to, I think, yesterday, but you know, it's not to be sniffed at. All right, I'm gonna go through these really quickly so we can do questions. I thought it would be quicker. I'm turning out to be more verbose than I thought, like Ash. All right, Facebook ads. Yeah, a lot of charities are showing great success with these. We had a brief the other day which said they wanted to do a social campaign to convert people. My first question was what you wanted to convert them to. I said, do you want to convert them into donors, or do you want to convert them into people that, you know, you've got information from? Like, what does that mean? Facebook ads are actually a good way of doing that. So you can get information from Facebook ads. You can get email addresses, phone numbers, that kind of thing, which brings your campaign to a different level. Potentially you can get event signups. I know a lot of people have had a lot of success with that. Obviously that might have to take a back seat for now. And then you can get money, but you have to make sure that they're very good in order to do that. And so maybe Facebook ads for the first instance will be about gathering information. I think last time I had a rant about Twitter. I won't do that now. What I will have a slight rant about is checks, big checks. I know that it's a really useful way to, and easy, actually, really easy way to say thank you to a company that supported you. But Chelsea had a really good point, and one of the pictures I had earlier was actually about showing what that money had bought for the nurses at that particular hospital. So instead of doing the big check picture, if we could start to think about actually showing companies and corporates what they've done with that money rather than the big check, I think that would be awesome. I would be so grateful not to see another big check ever again, unless it's a lottery check coming to me. The WhatsApp phone is huge right now. So our friends over at Purity and Brighton are having massive success with phone campaigns. So if that's something that you have the capacity to do and look at, then I would definitely recommend it. Website donation form, it's really, really, really important. So think back to that Isabel one. How easy was that and fun actually to select a little circle with money in it. I like doing that. I could probably spend a few minutes on that website actually, maybe giving them more money than I want to. There are tons of tools out there that you can use if you don't have an in-house designer. Chelsea, for example, if she wants to adapt something quickly, will use Canva. It's free, and a lot of the good features on it are free. So you don't even need to pay for it if you don't want to, if you don't have somebody with InDesign. Just Giving gets a bad rap because of the fees, but one of the things that Just Giving is good for is innovating. They understand how people give, and they understand the trends of it, and they're making their websites better all the time. To everybody's benefit. Personalized bit links, we only ever use something that's trackable so that we can see who's clicking on it. Insta challenges and donate buttons, tons of them. Check them out. Don't forget to email and tell honest stories. Right, I could do a whole webinar series on this, but I don't think anyone would come. So hopefully that's plenty. I'm going to take some questions now, but I just wanted to briefly mention that we are probably going to do a Light Up a Life webinar next. And if there's enough interest, I think we will do a virtual fundraising one, because there's so much stuff worth exploring that we could look into. So I think it's really, really crucial. If that's something that you're interested in, let us know, or just let us know what else you'd like to discuss. We can do Q&As, we can do webinars, whatever is useful to you. But, you know, I think it's really important that we're all sharing information while we're all stuck at our computers. Right, Chelsea, you there? Not there?
I'm here. Hello.
Okay. Have
I
we got?
hadn't unmuted myself.
Oh, congratulations.
Okay, so we have had a couple of questions. So the first one, when setting goals, I find it difficult to set realistic goals that also measure expectations. Do we have a formula to set growth, objective, spend on a campaign?
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? It's especially tricky if we're only looking at these things in terms of engagement. So it is very difficult and this is what we're talking about with measuring outcomes. If you're going to set, and I think actually now, if you're going to set an income figure against a social campaign, it needs to be realistic. But I think it's also really important that we show some of the successes that people have had recently to say that it is possible to gain money online. I can't really answer the question about how to make that case to people who have the money and hold the purse strings. But all I'd say is that with most of the world online right now, and especially that Facebook stat about over 65s being the largest group growing on Facebook, we can't rest on the things that we've done before and let those be the only things. If we do not develop on social, we will be left in the dust, because everybody coming up from my generation, so I'm 38, everybody coming up from my generation, I was one of the first people on Facebook because I went to school in the US, is only comfortable giving online. And there's no other way. So if we don't tap into that, it's to our detriment. And for Chelsea's generation, I would guess that's probably the same. Yeah. So it's not a very satisfactory answer, but if you want to talk to me in more detail about that, you can.
It's really difficult to have a perfect post as well. So the higher impressions go, often the lower your engagement rate goes. You've just kind of got to put what you want to do behind this post, whether you want people to learn about you more and that becomes more of a marketing thing, or whether you want people to engage with you and actually donate, and then that becomes a fundraising thing. So it needs to be like a collaboration between the two teams.
Yeah, and I think really important is I'm not denigrating collecting information as a success. So collecting email addresses and phone numbers at this point is hugely important, especially with all the decimated databases and GDPR. So if you can get an email address from somebody, if you get a phone number from someone, that is extremely valuable information.
A question that we've had a couple of times is, how do you gain traction on Twitter? And if you don't have a big following on Twitter at the moment, do you bother on Twitter, or do you just focus on platforms that we know work, like Facebook?
I'm going to start with the second one. I'm heavily biased on this. So Chelsea, as a Twitter user, I want you to answer after me. I think Twitter is fine. I think as a platform, it is highly business to business. So what you'll see is a lot of businesses talking to other businesses. As far as individuals go, and Chelsea, you can talk a bit more about this, they tend to cul-de-sac themselves into groups and following groups that are more individuals. So celebrities, talking heads like Trevor Noah and things like that. So they're not necessarily, I mean, Twitter has been traditionally described as a news platform. I don't personally think it's worth spending loads of time trying to fundraise on there, unless what you're trying to do is get into the corporate realm and attract more corporate contacts and things like that. But there's got to be a concentrated plan in place. You need to make your contacts into groups so that you can specifically watch and comment and talk to those people. But if it were me and I was working for a fundraising or marketing team, I'd probably spend more of my time on Facebook. So Chelsea, you want to talk about, because you've got a Twitter account.
Yes, I do. I have a Twitter account. I spend most of my day on the Pebblebeach Twitter account as well.
Yeah.
So my background is that I used to do social for companies. So I used to work at a B2B PR agency, and Twitter was our main focus because Twitter mainly is a B2B platform. Yeah. The impressions that we'd get would be really great, but we wouldn't necessarily be selling something to a consumer. It's really, really hard to sell or to get someone to donate through Twitter, because as much as we think everyone's on it, we're on it through our companies. We're not on it through our personal accounts all day checking in. We're seeing what other hospices, what other fundraising agencies, we're seeing what's happening in our little bubble. And it's really easy to kind of get stuck thinking that everyone reads everything you do or that everyone agrees with everything that you do when you're just on Twitter, because there's such a small kind of population on there that all think kind of the same way.
Yeah,
You know,
we're
I'd
all
kind
doing
of
the same things and thinking that we're selling to people, but yeah, yeah, I think that's
it's really difficult. It's very easy to think that everyone's on the same wavelength when it comes to Twitter as well. You only have to look at the elections. If you've been on Twitter during the elections, you would have thought it was a landslide one way, and then the whole Brexit thing is an example of that. You would have thought it would have gone one way and then it went the other way, because Twitter attracts a certain type of person, and most of the time it's someone who's on their company one. So I wouldn't say that it's necessarily where you should focus all of your efforts. It's somewhere that you should definitely have a presence on, but it's easier for people to be on Facebook and it's easier for people to be on Instagram. And even though Instagram isn't hugely user friendly when it comes to clicking on things, it's better to have those where you sit there scrolling through every day than it is Twitter.
And I think an important point to add about Twitter is that probably, and I don't have the statistic for this, but most people access Twitter on their phones, and the platform of Twitter on your phone is very much like a news feed. So it is scrollable. It's just picking up sound bites and headlines of things that are happening, and it's not necessary. I think for most, well, again, I'm extrapolating, but for most people, it's an information source rather than an activity source. And so, if you want people to do something, then you might want to look at Instagram and Facebook instead of Twitter.
Yes, I agree with that 100%. But it's good to be on there. So stay on there. Just
it's why
maybe do like 20% of your efforts on Twitter. Another question we've had is about ads. So Facebook ads for one, and then Google AdWords and Google Social Fund. So do you want to talk about Facebook ads first?
Yeah. What specifically is the question? Just should you do them?
So finding Facebook ads really hard to grasp, almost too much information. I feel like the reach is quite low and there's never an amazing success from it. Is there any good websites or tutorials to check out to master it?
Yes, there probably are. And you know what? I'll have a look later on for those. And I think that that's true. I think it's easy to get bogged down a lot of information on Facebook ads, because the back end of Facebook is all analytics. And what they're asking you to do is pick a group of people that you want to target that ad to. So I completely get that. And also your money goes very quickly when you're trying to target. If for example, you've set that geography up wrong, your money goes really fast. And that's not what you want. You want to be able to reach the people that you're looking to reach with a reasonable spend and easy spend, and see some results from that. So I do understand that. I will have a look for some resources on how best to use that. Whenever we've done it in the past for other charities, they've already got sort of set up really, really concise demographics to reach those ads to. There is also an interesting Facebook resource. I'll see if I can find the link and add it into the emails that will come out to you after this with the webinar link, but it's called Facebook Ad Library. And what you can do is go in and actually search for charities and organizations and see what they've done before. So the entirety of the ad library is full and available for you to look at. So Thames Hospice, for instance, who we've worked with before, who are doing a build, have done some Facebook ads. You can actually see how much they spent and how many people they reached with that, as well as the creative for it, if you want to look at that ad library. I don't know if that was helpful either, but there you go.
Another thing on Facebook ads as well, which is something to bear in mind, is that your success is based on what type of ad you want it to be, whether you want it to be something that people see or whether you want it to be something that people engage with. So you need to set that and then make sure that the content in your post reflects that as well. So if you want someone to click on something, say, click on this. People need like a push in the right direction. Just putting the link up and a nice bit of text isn't enough often for a lot of people.
Yeah, and again, that fold, all of this will probably be in some sort of resource about this, but that fold information is very important. So actually highlighting the words so that people can see them over the top of the ad is really important, making it as bold as possible, but also like really being clear about what you want to achieve from that. So for a lot of charities, as I said, when we've been talking to Purity, who are the telephone agency a lot, and you wouldn't think that they dealt in Facebook ads, but what they do is they do a lot of Facebook ads that collect phone numbers and emails. And that is the engagement that they're after, because that for them is a person to contact, is a person to go to the next stage with. So maybe in terms of money, it's quite tricky to see the benefit there, but in terms of contacts, it is proving to be extremely valuable. Prostate Cancer UK had a pin badge giveaway. So it was targeting people who looked a certain way demographically, but they gave away pin badges. You had to put in your details to get that pin badge. But Prostate Cancer UK has a group of now engaged individuals who believe in their message and their stuff, and they got that through Facebook ads. So.
Just to mention Twitter ads, I know I said don't concentrate on Twitter, but Twitter do have an ad platform, which actually I think is really useful. And you can target your ads based on whether you want people to click something, and you only spend money once someone has done that. So that's quite useful if you are doing something where you want people to sign up to something or to leave details, like Amy said, you'll only spend the money once someone has done that. So often your budget goes a bit further on Twitter.
It's just a trickier spend, isn't it?
It is. Did you want to talk about Google AdWords?
Google AdWords, to be honest with you, I don't know loads about them. I think the thing is that with Google, what you're talking about, it's a bit to me like looking at the ocean. What we want to be focusing on is the sort of tried and true. I'm trying to make this analogy work. The internet's like the ocean, okay? So if what you're trying to focus on is Google AdWords to get people to the website, that is a huge gamble. That is a huge, huge difficult thing to do. And I'd say as a business, because we're not a charity, we haven't even dabbled that much into Google AdWords. We're very conscious of our SEO so that we know that we're saying the right things for if you are Googling a fundraising agency or you need help with that, that we hopefully come up, within the top 10 responses for that. So yeah, I wouldn't like to pretend like I know loads about Google AdWords. I just think, I think the most bang for your buck is going to be on the platforms that people are playing and spending their social time. I can see how it would be useful to focus on those things if you're trying to get your website hits up. But then again, most people do not organically just go to your website. That is not how they find you. They find you through Facebook. They find you through friends on Facebook. So people who post things. They find you through Twitter even sometimes. They might find you through Instagram, but that's probably the third step. That's after they found you elsewhere. Or they're clicking on all the things that you've got on the bottom of emails. So you are guiding the journey. And if you're guiding the journey, it's important that you use the things that are easiest at your disposal. I'm being helpful with these, but...
Another thing just about Google Ads as well, to physically set them up, it's actually quite simple. If you go onto Google, they have a specialized helpline as well that you can talk to someone who works at Google who can talk you through it all as well. And you can set parameters around location, around what words people use to search for. From a hospice point of view, it's difficult because if someone is looking for you people aren't just going to search hospice. And if they search hospice, then their geolocation is going to come up with hospices near them, rather than Google Ads being the thing that they click on.
Yeah.
So it's difficult in that respect. And I imagine that it might be the same in charities as well. But I don't know how charities have performed with Google Ads.
I'd say, what I will say actually about that, because I learned this yesterday, is with AdWords, things like donate are very important. So if you type donate into Google, all of the big charities will come up. And that's not an accident. So you got your Mary Curies, your British Red Cross, all that kind of stuff. So they have designed their website and made sure that those things hit on their charities when you search for that.
I hope that helps. If not, Google has great resources.
I'm being very helpful. I'm not being very helpful.
Another one, LinkedIn. Did you want to talk about LinkedIn? So we haven't really mentioned LinkedIn. Have we seen any success?
I have not. I've not mentioned LinkedIn because, again, I think when people, and this is just speculation, but I think when people go on LinkedIn, they go on with their business hat on. So they go in as the person they are professionally rather than the person they are in their off time. Does the person you are professionally give money to charities? Potentially, but I tend to think, if I'm using the focus group of one, as Ash likes to say, me as an example, I like to give money when I'm in my off time, and I'm thinking about, okay, so I need to buy some groceries. My friend Florence has put up a Facebook fundraiser for a birthday for Starlight Children's Charity. I'll just chuck a tenner on that. That's my fun downtime when I'm looking through Facebook. When I'm on LinkedIn, I'm thinking about very different things. I'm thinking about, oh, what's V at St. Barnabas doing today? When's the gin and jammies thing? Like, I'm thinking about completely different stuff. Now, if we're going to use that example and push it forth to everybody, not everybody thinks that way, but in terms of proportion of time spent, it's a very valuable tool for learning from other people and other charities. I don't necessarily think as a fundraising platform it's super useful, but I have seen lots of great examples of best practice going up. So like with Isabel and Birmingham putting their campaigns up and getting a lot of praise and comments from their colleagues at other hospices, all of which is extremely useful and valuable. Do you have anything about LinkedIn, Chelsea?
It's where you should put your pictures of your big checks.
Yes.
It's literally the platform for that. The corporates that give you money and have the pictures with you do that, so then they have the picture, they get to, obviously they're doing a really great thing, but they also get to show that they've done that great thing. The place that other businesses will see that is where they are, which is LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. It's great for working out who at companies that you should talk to about stuff, and it's a great way for companies to shout about the great stuff that they're doing with charities. I used to work for a massive contract caterer, and they had a charity of the year, and the majority of our LinkedIn was just talking about the charity of the year and what we were doing to support them. So that's where you should really ham up those kind of partnerships, I guess.
Yeah, so if we were to split these things into areas of fundraising, LinkedIn and Twitter both, I think probably community and corporate. Individual giving, definitely Facebook and Instagram. This is a very, ham-handed way of dividing them. But if we're looking at them as tools, it's really important that the right fundraisers got the right tools to be able to go forward with.
That looks like it's all the questions, unless anyone's got anything else.
That's cool. I mean, our email address, or my email address, is up there. You can always contact hello at. We are always around. I'm always in my house now. So if you need to contact me, I'll be here. Chelsea will be in that chair where she is every day.
It's like the Big Brother chair.
Yeah, that's a little bit. So yeah, please don't be a stranger. Please ask us any questions. If you like the sound of our Light Up a Life webinar, I think that's definitely the one we're doing next. But we're a little bit up in the air about what the one in a month's time. So we'll do these every couple of weeks for as long as they're useful to people. So Light Up a Life next, because I know that is it feels to me like a big thing on the horizon that nobody wants to look at. It's super, super important. We're starting to work on a few right now. And I think, if things keep going the way they are, we might not have events the way they looked at like they did last year. So it's really important. I think Ash will lead that about what we can consider doing this year and how we start on that.
And one other thing, if we have said anything in this Q&A that you disagree with or have examples to show us that we're wrong, then please do send them through, because if you're not challenging someone, then you're not learning. And I'd love to be proven wrong about anything.
Send them to Chelsea, not me.
Yeah, send them all to me.
So Chelsea, Naomi, and I are the ones that tend to work on social media. It's basically just our names at pebblebeachfundraising.com. If you've got a question for any of us, happy to answer them. And we will send a link for this webinar out via email with the email address that you signed up with to the webinar. I really appreciate you guys coming in. It's weird to spend a morning doing this, but it's the new normal, huh? So thanks. And if there's any questions we haven't answered, again, please get in touch and we'll send out details about the next one very soon. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Well done, Amy. Thank you very much indeed, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Have a good Thursday and bank holiday weekend.
All right, lovely. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thanks.
Now I have to stop the actual thing.